Have you ever wondered why some people keep moving forward no matter how many times they fail while others give up after their first setback? It's not because they're smarter. It's not because they're more talented. And it's certainly not because they have fewer obstacles in their lives. The difference is their mindset. You see, success is not about what you do when everything is going your way. Success is about who you become when life tests your commitment, your patience, and your belief in yourself. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who have a reason strong enough to keep going when failure shows up. When you have a clear purpose, challenges become lessons. Rejection becomes feedback. And obstacles become opportunities to grow stronger. Today, we're going to explore how to develop a success mindset that never gives up. A mindset that stays focused when others quit, stays confident when others doubt, and keeps moving forward when the path gets difficult. Because the moment you learn to master your mindset, you begin to unlock a version of yourself that is capable of achieving far more than you ever imagined. Let's begin. Every great achievement begins with a reason. Before the success, before the recognition, before the results that everyone sees, there is always a deeper purpose driving a person forward. That purpose is what gives meaning to effort, strength during difficult times, and direction when uncertainty appears. Many people focus on goals, but very few take the time to understand why those goals matter to them. The truth is that goals can change, circumstances can shift, and plans can fail, but a powerful reason can keep a person moving forward no matter what happens. Think about the people who accomplish extraordinary things. They are not always the most talented. They are not always the smartest. What separates them from everyone else is often their ability to stay committed when things become difficult. That commitment comes from knowing exactly why they started in the first place. When a person understands their purpose, they stop relying on motivation alone. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes depending on emotions, circumstances, and energy levels. Purpose is different. Purpose remains steady even when motivation disappears. Many people quit because they focus only on what they want. They want success, money, recognition, freedom, or achievement. These things can be powerful goals, but they are not always strong enough to sustain effort through challenges. When obstacles arise, the excitement of the goal begins to fade. The struggle feels bigger than the reward. Doubts begin to appear. The mind starts creating reasons to stop. This is where a strong why becomes essential. A clear purpose reminds you why the struggle matters. It reminds you why the sacrifice is worth making. It gives you a reason to continue even when the outcome is uncertain. Imagine two people starting the same journey. Both want to succeed. Both have similar skills and opportunities. The first person is driven by a desire to impress others. The second person is driven by a desire to create a better future for themselves and the people they care about. When challenges appear, the first person's motivation begins to weaken because external validation is often unreliable. The second person continues moving forward because their purpose is connected to something deeper than approval. One reason is temporary. The other is meaningful. Your why acts like an internal compass. Life will not always be predictable. There will be moments when the path ahead becomes unclear. There will be failures, setbacks, disappointments, and unexpected obstacles. During those moments, your purpose helps you stay focused on what truly matters. Instead of becoming distracted by every challenge, you remain connected to the bigger picture. You remember the reason behind your actions and continue moving in the direction that aligns with your values and goals. A strong why also creates resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover from difficulties and keep moving forward. People often think resilience is something you are born with, but it is usually built through purpose. When you care deeply about something, you develop the strength to endure more than you thought possible. You become willing to learn, adapt, and try again because giving up would mean abandoning something important to you. Many successful people have faced repeated failures before achieving their goals. What allowed them to continue was not luck or perfect circumstances. It was their commitment to a purpose greater than the obstacles standing in front of them. They understood that every setback was part of the journey, not the end of it. Their purpose gave them the patience to keep learning and the courage to keep trying. Finding your why requires honesty. It requires looking beyond surface-level goals and asking deeper questions. Why do you want success? Why does this goal matter to you? What impact do you want to create? How would achieving this goal change your life or the lives of others? The answers to these questions reveal motivations that are far more powerful than simple ambition. They uncover the values, dreams, and beliefs that drive meaningful action. When your actions are connected to purpose, even small tasks become significant. Hard work no longer feels like punishment. Challenges no longer feel meaningless. Every step becomes part of a larger mission. This mindset changes the way you approach obstacles. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What can this teach me?" Instead of seeing barriers, you start seeing opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. Purpose also provides clarity. In a world full of distractions, it is easy to lose focus. There are endless opinions, opportunities, and expectations competing for your attention. Without a clear reason guiding you, it becomes difficult to know which direction to take. A strong why helps you make better decisions because it gives you a standard for evaluating your choices. If something aligns with your purpose, it deserves your energy. If it does not, it becomes easier to let it go. The most powerful reasons are often connected to contribution, growth, and meaning. They go beyond personal gain and connect to something larger than immediate rewards. When your purpose serves a deeper mission, your determination becomes stronger. You become less dependent on external circumstances because your drive comes from within. You are no longer chasing success simply because it looks attractive. You are pursuing it because it represents something important to your identity and values. People with a strong why do not avoid fear. They feel fear just like everyone else. The difference is that their purpose is greater than their fear. They understand that growth requires discomfort and that meaningful achievements often demand sacrifice. Their reason gives them the courage to take action despite uncertainty. They move forward not because the path is easy, but because the destination matters. A success mindset begins with understanding that lasting determination is built on purpose. Skills can be learned. Strategies can be improved. Opportunities can be created. But without a meaningful reason driving your actions, persistence becomes difficult. The stronger your why, the stronger your ability to endure challenges, remain focused, and continue moving toward your goals regardless of the obstacles that stand in your way. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human growth. Most people are taught to avoid it, hide it, or feel ashamed of it. From a very early age, failure is often labeled as something negative, something that reflects a lack of ability or intelligence. But in reality, failure is one of the most powerful forms of feedback we can ever receive. It is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process that leads to success. The problem is not that people fail. The problem is that they interpret failure incorrectly. When you look at any meaningful achievement, you will find a trail of mistakes behind it. Every successful person has failed more times than most people have even tried. What separates them is not that they avoided failure, but that they learned how to use it. Instead of seeing failure as a final outcome, they see it as information. Information about what does not work, information about what needs to be improved, and information about how to adjust the next attempt. This shift in perspective changes everything about how progress is made. Most people stop too early because failure feels personal. When something goes wrong, they assume it means something about their identity rather than their approach. They say things like, "I am not good enough," or "I cannot do this," instead of asking a more useful question like, "What did this teach me?" Or, "What can I adjust next time?" The moment failure becomes personal, it becomes painful. And when something is painful, the natural human response is to avoid it. That avoidance is what stops growth. A success mindset understands that failure is not a reflection of who you are, but a reflection of what you tried. There is a big difference between identity and action. You are not defined by a single attempt, a single mistake, or a single outcome. You are defined by your ability to continue after those moments. When you start to detach your identity from your results, you become more willing to take risks, more willing to experiment, and more willing to step into situations where the outcome is uncertain. Every failure carries a message, but only if you are willing to listen to it. Sometimes the message is that your strategy needs adjustment. Sometimes it is that your timing was off. Sometimes it is that you need more practice, more knowledge, or more patience. And sometimes the message is simply that you are one step closer to understanding what does not work, which automatically brings you closer to what does work. But none of this becomes useful unless you pause long enough to reflect instead of react emotionally. People often underestimate how much emotional control is required to turn failure into feedback. The immediate reaction to failure is frustration, disappointment, or self-doubt. These emotions are natural, but they are also temporary. The danger comes when decisions are made during emotional reactions. When someone fails and immediately decides to quit, they are not responding to reality, they are responding to discomfort. A strong mindset learns to separate the emotional experience from the analytical response. First feel it, then study it, then learn from it. There is also a pattern among those who develop resilience through failure. They begin to see small failures as necessary repetitions rather than major setbacks. Just like physical training requires repeated stress on muscles to grow stronger, mental and emotional strength also requires repeated exposure to difficulty. If everything always works on the first try, there is no development of depth, no building of character, and no strengthening of persistence. The discomfort is part of the construction process. What most people miss is that failure often contains hidden progress. Even when the result is not what you wanted, you are still gaining experience, awareness, and understanding. You are building familiarity with the process. You are learning how things behave under real conditions rather than theoretical ones. This kind of learning cannot happen through reading or observation alone. It happens through action, and action always involves uncertainty. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up is not the absence of failure, but the interpretation of it. One person sees failure as a stop sign, the other sees it as a guidepost. One person sees it as proof that they should quit, the other sees it as proof that they are actively in the process of learning something valuable. This interpretation determines whether momentum continues or stops completely. Even when failure feels overwhelming, there is always something inside it that can be used for improvement. Sometimes it is a small adjustment in behavior, sometimes it is a shift in approach, and sometimes it is a complete rethinking of strategy. But none of that becomes visible unless there is willingness to stay engaged with the process instead of walking away from it. Growth is often found in the space between what you expected and what actually happened, in that gap where discomfort exists and understanding has not yet fully formed, where you are still trying to make sense of what just unfolded and how it might influence the next attempt. When you start to notice patterns that were not visible before, and when you start to see self-belief is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior, yet it is also one of the most fragile. It is shaped over time by experiences, environment, feedback, and the way a person interprets their own journey. When self-belief is strong, a person moves with confidence, takes action without excessive hesitation, and is willing to face uncertainty with courage. When it is weak, even simple tasks can feel overwhelming, and opportunities are often avoided not because they are impossible, but because they feel unreachable in the mind of the individual. Many people assume that self-belief comes after success, but in reality, it often comes before it. You do not become confident only after achieving something significant. Instead, confidence is what allows you to attempt something significant in the first place. This creates a cycle. Belief leads to action. Action leads to results, and results reinforce belief. But the cycle must begin somewhere. And that starting point is always a decision to trust yourself even before external proof exists. The challenge is that most people rely too heavily on external validation. They wait for others to approve their ideas, confirm their abilities, or recognize their potential before they start believing in themselves. This creates dependence on outside opinions, which are always inconsistent and often unpredictable. When your self-worth depends on external feedback, your confidence rises and falls depending on circumstances you cannot control. A success mindset requires breaking free from this dependency and building internal validation instead. Internal belief means trusting your ability to figure things out even when you do not have all the answers. It is not about believing you are already perfect or fully skilled. It is about believing that you are capable of learning, adapting, and improving through experience. This is a much stronger form of confidence because it is not based on current ability, but on potential growth. It allows you to enter situations where you are not fully prepared, knowing that preparation itself can be developed through action. One of the biggest threats to self-belief is comparison. When people constantly compare themselves to others, especially those who appear more successful or more talented, they begin to underestimate their own progress. They forget that every person is on a different timeline, with different challenges, resources, and experiences. Comparison shifts focus away from personal growth and redirects it toward external measurement. Instead of asking, Am I improving? People start asking, am I better than them? This creates insecurity rather than growth. A strong mindset understands that confidence is built through evidence. Every time you take action and survive a challenge, you create evidence that you are capable. Every time you learn something new and apply it, you reinforce your ability to grow. Even small wins matter because they accumulate over time. The mind responds to repeated proof. If you consistently show yourself that you can handle difficulty, your belief in yourself becomes stronger naturally. However, the opposite is also true. If you repeatedly avoid challenges, your self-belief weakens. Avoidance teaches the mind that situations are too difficult, too risky, or too overwhelming. Over time, this creates a pattern of hesitation. That is why action is essential. Even imperfect action is powerful because it breaks the cycle of doubt. You do not need perfect conditions to build confidence. You need consistent exposure to situations that challenge your current level. There is also an important distinction between confidence and arrogance. True self-belief is not about thinking you are better than others. It is about understanding your own capacity to grow. Arrogance ignores learning, while self-belief embraces it. Arrogance assumes certainty, while self-belief accepts uncertainty but moves forward anyway. A strong mindset does not require certainty before acting. It requires willingness to act despite uncertainty. The voice inside your mind plays a major role in shaping self-belief. Internal dialogue can either strengthen or weaken your confidence. When you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not good enough, not ready, or not capable, you begin to accept those thoughts as truth. But when you challenge those thoughts and replace them with more constructive ones, you start to change your perception of yourself. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing interpretations that support growth rather than limitation. Every person has moments of doubt. Even the most successful individuals experience uncertainty. The difference is that they do not allow doubt to become a decision maker. They acknowledge it. But they do not obey it. They continue taking action even when confidence is not fully present. Over time, this creates resilience, and resilience strengthens belief. The more you act in spite of doubt, the weaker doubt becomes. Self-belief also grows when you start keeping promises to yourself. Every time you decide to do something and follow through, you build trust within yourself. That trust becomes the foundation of confidence. When you break promises to yourself repeatedly, even in small ways, your mind begins to doubt your reliability. This is why discipline and self-belief are closely connected. Discipline is the behavior that proves belief, and belief is the mindset that fuels discipline. There is a point in every growth journey where external validation becomes less important than internal certainty. At that point, a person stops waiting for permission and starts creating momentum through action. They stop questioning whether they are capable and start proving it through experience. They stop seeing themselves through the lens of past limitations and begin seeing themselves through the possibilities of future development, where each attempt becomes another opportunity to reinforce the idea that progress is always available, even when results are not immediate, and where persistence itself becomes evidence of strength. Daily discipline is the foundation that turns intention into reality. Many people have ideas,